Yes, guys, what's going on? Welcome to Full Time Devils. I am Adam McKola. Obviously, I'm not at Bramall Lane today, but still had to give my reaction to that 3-3 draw that we witnessed in Sheffield. Oh my days, what a game it was, and not all for good reason for Manchester United fan. This club will absolutely be the death of me, I promise you. It will be, for good or bad. We never seem to do it easy, and today it was pretty much mostly all bad, apart from a 10-15 minute period in the second half where we seemed to somehow score 3 goals. It was incredible, absolutely incredible. Let's start from the beginning. 3-4-1-2 or 3-4-3 Manchester United play today. Phil Jones joined Lindelof and Maguire in the defence. Brandon Williams and Wan-Bissaka were the wing backs, and we had Pereira and Fred in the central midfield with James, Martial and Rashford in a front three. The problem for United was we didn't have someone in that hole in between the front three. Usually we play with Rashford, Martial as a 2, and then someone in the hole. Jesse, Mata, someone like that playing in the hole, Andreas Pereira. But we didn't do that. We had a much more flat 3-4-3, and Sheffield United were absolutely phenomenal. They were pretty good, and to be honest, they didn't have to be phenomenal. They weren't phenomenal. They were just well functioned, well drilled, well oiled, played the ball well, passed the ball well, kept the ball, and created chances. They could have went 1-0, 2-0 up very, very early, but for David De Gea, who seemed to be in possession, passing the ball out, and of course, in his saves, back to his usual self today. But we still conceded 3 goals, and that shows where the problems were. It was all defensive for Manchester United, and none other than Phil Jones, who was, Lindelof was bad, Maguire didn't have a great game today, although he was probably the best of a bad bunch in that 3. But Phil Jones was awful. He started off well in terms of he protected Brandon Williams, who made a mistake, and recovered for him really well. But then he just absolutely lost his head in typical Phil Jones fashion. Now I know, there's that video of me going around saying he'll be United England captain. That was a long time ago. It was a long time ago when Fergie said he'll be the next Duncan Edwards. That was a long time ago. And we've known ever since, in the last whatever years, that he's not good enough for Manchester United. But here he is starting now. Yes, Rojo is injured. Axel Tuanzebe just back from injury. But Axel came on late. If he's fit enough to come on, surely he's fit enough to start. And why force Phil Jones in the first place? If you haven't got enough centre-halves, play Jimmy Garner in midfield. Invest in this youth. We're not winning the league this season. We're not finishing top 4 this season. Why are we persisting with Phil Jones? Play Jimmy Garner, go to a 4-2-3-1 or whatever, and play in a more familiar fashion. And if it was tactical, the reason we played a back 3, and it wasn't just because we were trying to cover the flaws of a weak midfield, then it clearly didn't work, and it should have been changed earlier. We shouldn't have waited till half-time to change it, where we were lucky to be only 1-0 up. The goal comes for them. I think it was Fleck that scored it for them. And the goal comes from them from a mistake from Phil Jones. Again, instead of muscling someone, instead of knocking the ball out for a throw, instead of shielding the ball out, he goes to try and win a free kick. Cowardly. Deal with it yourself. Don't look for the referee to give you a decision. It was never a free kick. They keep the ball in, whip the ball back. It's a goal despite David De Gea's best efforts, and we're 1-0 down. And we never recovered from that. The football was poor. We looked like we'd never trained together, never mind, played together. And we didn't look good enough. Fred looking up. I felt sorry for him at times today. Yes, he was poor. I felt sorry for him at times. But every time he looked up, there was no one there. Martial was occupied by centre-halves. Danny James out wide. Marcus Rashford out wide. No one in that space in between. It was so easy. And the change should have been made earlier. And that has to come down to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. You can get your tactics wrong. You can see 10 minutes, 1-0 up, 1-0 down, sorry. Change it after 15, 20 minutes. Don't be scared. You were ruthless enough to take Phil Jones off at half-time. Be ruthless enough to take him off after 30 minutes. Change it up. Put some fear into these players. Yes, you have to be nice. We know that we don't want anyone to be throwing our players under the bus. But certain times call for certain measures. And today he needed putting out of his misery, which he did at half-time. But tactically it needed to change as well. Even then, if you stick him in midfield and get him out of the way, I don't know what, but you needed to change, and we didn't change it up. And Sheffield United grew in confidence. They could have been 1-0, 2-0 up. Just after they break, they were 2-0 up. Now, we did make that change to 4-2-3-1. We showed a little bit more intent, and by that, I mean we had a shot after a minute in the second half. It took us 28 minutes to get our first shot on target in the first half because the movement of the front three was poor and the delivery of pass from the midfield was poor. It either had to be a perfect pass or a perfect run or a mistake, and we never had any of those kind of combinations of things happening. And then we go to that 4-2-3-1. Lingard, who didn't have a great game, he didn't even have a very good game, but him occupying spaces, him moving around, him making those positions for other people, it changed the game for us in the second half. But nevertheless, they took a 2-0 lead. Moussa with a fantastic goal, to be fair to him. David De Gea didn't have much chance with it. It was a great strike from the edge of the box. 50, 60, 65 minutes passing, it didn't feel like anything was changing. The football was still poor. We weren't really creating opportunities. We were having more possession, but that was more because Sheffield United were just happy to let us do that. And then we get a goal from Brandon Williams. Fantastic goal. Marcelo-like. The way he's kept it down, hit it on the half volley, I think it was, and met the far corner. 2-1, you're thinking, we don't deserve to be in this game, but we're in this game. We got about 19, 18 minutes left. Let's see what we can do. And to be fair to Ali, he absolutely went for it. He made some more changes. Mason Greenwood came on for Andreas Pereira, I think. And Jesse Lingard occupied a position more next to Fred. Obviously, when we were attacking, he was pushing higher up the field, but in defence, he was more next to Fred in that 4-2-3-1, and he performed actually better than Andreas Pereira did there. And then, you know, the spaces going forward, we knocked the ball about a little bit. Rashford finds a great pass to Mason Greenwood, who's running into that box, running into that 6-yard box, and then it's 2-2, and you're thinking, wow, we're back in it. The momentum's with us. Let's go. We've got the pace in this team, and luckily, not luckily, we made our own luck. We get the goal. Daniel James, who nothing went off for him all day, gets the assist for Marcus Rashford. 3-2 Manchester United. You're thinking, how the hell have we shithoused us into this position? But we have. And we throw it away at the end. We throw it away. Now, some people have criticised Ali for making the defensive change, bringing on Twanzebe for Martial. Now, I feel like if he doesn't make a change to bring on Twanzebe or a defender and try and shore things up, and we can see people criticise anyway, so I can see both sides. But the fact was, defensively, it was a shambles. We had players in there that were scared to challenge. No one putting their foot in, no one taking responsibility. There was enough people in there, but no one taking responsibility. I think Fred was in there, Lingard was in there. You know, put your foot through it. Victor Lindelof had an opportunity, put your foot through it. And then we're hoping that we can win the aerial battle. Ollie McBurney gets it, brings it down, scores. David De Gea, maybe I'm being too harsh, probably could have done better, but with what he had saved throughout the day, I thought, you know, he looked pretty good today, but am I being harsh with that one? I don't know, but felt like he could have pushed it out, but he didn't. 3-3, it goes to a VAR check. It was never handball anyway. And, you know, Sheffield United get a point that they've, you know, at the very least deserved. But United throw it away, and we've drew 3-3 from a game that we never looked like getting anything, and I'm disappointed that we never won. And it feels like a defeat. But I think that frustration as well comes from the performance of that 70 minutes, and you can't let that 10-15 minute spell paper over that. Yes, you look back at it and you think, the last 7 games, won 5, drawn 1, lost 1. You beat Astana, you beat Villa, you're looking at that 7... You know, you're looking 7 wins, 1 draw, 1 win out of 9 games. It's not that bad in terms of a run of form, but we've got some big fixtures coming up. Spurs at home, City away, some pretty strong games coming up. And if we don't get the results right here, if we don't get the results right in these games that we should be winning, and I include Sheffield United in that, because yes, they're a good team, but we should be winning that. If you don't get the results right there, then it adds more pressure on there. And you could very possibly lose those games. And the pressure builds on Ali. Now the board can say all they want, that they're behind the man, and you know they've got a long-term plan in place. But we know what they are like. They are very knee-jerk. They sacked Van Gaal because Mourinho was available. They sacked Mourinho, bringing Ali on a caretaker job, say we're going to do our due diligence, win a few games, get giddy and appoint him. We knew it was always going to come down to this. Now one thing that's added to this, Poch's availability. Allegri maybe availability. You can shout at different managers if you want, sat at home. But with the availability of these managers now, it's only going to increase the pressure on Ali. Now the fact we didn't lose probably tempers it a little bit. But even still, the manner of the performance was not good enough. And yes, I understand. We've got no midfield. We've got no attack. If we get injuries, we're pretty much fucked. I said it at the start of the season. Again, Gary Neville's repeating it today. I said it at the start of the season. Like, that was the case. If we get injuries in midfield and attack, we're fucked. And that has happened throughout the season. But you can't blame us on not having McTominay today for the way the midfield played, for the way the tactics were, for the way we were passing the ball, for the way there was no cohesion. And yes, younger players are going to be inconsistent. But Phil Jones, one of the oldest out there today, running around like an absolute bellend. Like, so you have to, you know, the responsibility has to go down to the manager. It's like I've said with Mourinho, everyone, Van Gaal, Moyes. Yes, you can say they have to get time. They all have to get time. They all have to get windows. They all have to get backed in the market by the owners. And the owners have let down every single manager, including Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But also, to be able to get that time, you have to show signs of improvement. You have to get results. And you have to keep, at the very least, a little bit competitive. And I fear for Ole that, you know, this pressure is going to continue to build now. And this is a position none of us wanted to see him in. None of us wanted to see him in. Whether you wanted him appointed or not, we didn't want to see one of our heroes in this position. And every defeat that goes by is going to build and build and build. And the calls for POCH are only going to get louder. Anyway, guys, let us know what you think in the comments below. There were positives today. 3 goals scored by academy players. Brandon Williams scoring. Mason Greenwood scoring. Marcus Rashford getting a goal and an assist, continuing his fine form. But overall, it was pretty bad performance by the boys. Let us know what you're thinking in the comments below. Make sure you're liking, commenting, sharing and subscribing. And for now, I've been Adam McKola. This has been Full Time Devils. Go and check out the fan cams. I'm out of here.